Hey y'all, it's Jamaica back at it with you guys. Thank you for joining this channel today. Thank you for listening. Anyway, let's get into it. Look, thank you for joining the podcast because I might go ahead and download this as audio as well and put it on the podcast. So y'all, I was just talking about the Bible verses that was talking about men love your wife and women being submissive. And I had a conversation with one of my clients the other day. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday, as a matter of fact. And what my little things at? Because honey sugar iced tea. My client was dropping some stuff. Like we was dropping stuff together. That's why I like, look, I like and love what I do. I write stuff down that because like usually I write down what I say. And I'd be like, oh, that sounded good. Let me write this down real quick. But baby, she had dropped some bombs on me too. And I was like, girl, that was a good one. Is it on here? Dang, y'all, I might have lied. I'm so upset. Anyway, so just to give y'all a intro in all of this stuff, because I don't want it to be too far. People be like, well, what you gonna talk about? Pretty much in the scripture or whatever that we was reading, it's like men, it was like women submit to your husband. And in that scripture, it's like Ephesians 5, in the 20s, because it's two parts to it. So it was like women submit to your husband. So it talks about women submitting, and it says it twice within the scripture. And then it turns around and it talks to the man about men love your wife. And what I was saying was it talks to the man about loving his wife. At least let me see if I can pull it up real quick so I can count this bad boy out. So is this the Ephesians? Boom. Yeah. Boom. Scroll it down. So it says love your wife about 5 times, I'm thinking. I don't know. I'm not going to really count it right now because it's a lot going on. But it says it more, about the man loving the wife. And the more that he loves his wife, then she can respect him, because at the end of it, at the very end, the last sentence, it says, and the wife must respect her husband. It says, however, each of you must love his wife and as he loved himself, right? And then it was like, then the woman will respect you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it says love 7 times in this thing. But yeah, 5 out of those, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 out of those 7 is about the husband loving the wife. 2 is about him loving himself, and 1 is just going to how Christ loved the woman. I mean the church. Dang, y'all, my client had dropped some good stuff. I really wanted to bring that into this, but needless to say, I'll give y'all the gist of it. We was having this conversation, and we were really just talking about how, people have attachment styles and attachment and detachment styles. And we were talking about how people talk about love and all these different things. And it was always talking about how men say that they are so easily able to just have sex with a woman and then detach from her and it not mean a whole lot. And then how women are always, the ones who fall in love so easily and, whatever else. And as we were having this conversation, my client was like, yes, I do believe that women can have, well, no, first we were talking about how people don't have these conversations with the youth, and how it was something about how people don't have these conversations with the youth, and wanting to have had someone to talk you into, or to have a conversation about sex and what those people always talk about. They always talk about it's not the entanglement of spirits, but soul ties. And so it was developing into these ideas of soul ties. And I was like, well, everybody's belief system is a little bit different on those, but you're right. Soul ties, when, we were younger, they might not have had that expression, even though sometimes what happens is people say certain things, but they don't explain it in detail. And I was like, so the expression soul ties may not have been discussed in the 90s and the early 2000s. As much as it is now in the I don't know, our mid 2000s at this point, 20 years in. But as we were having this conversation, she was like, the thing about it is men are more in love than women. And I thought about it a little bit, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, in what way? And not that I disagree, I wholeheartedly agree, but in what way? And so she was like, well, men become very much attached, and men have this whole, the woman who got away, right? The one who got away, because they are usually in love with that particular one. But they have this ability to try and play down this thing about them being in love. And I was like, okay. And then she also was talking about, she was like, also, they are very much attached as well. And people always want to make it seem as though, this is me putting my own words to what she was saying, because she was like, men are attached. Let me put what she said. She was kind of like, men are attached as well. That's why they get with a woman and they can't leave the woman, even when they know it ain't no good for them. They'll still stick in the same situation. They get attached to their baby mamas, and they don't want, they want X, Y, Z, and won't leave their baby mama, or they will be living with a woman and then, don't want to leave. Right. And so then I thought about it a little bit. And so I added my own ideas to what she was saying. I was like, you're kind of right. Like, women, they love, love, love. But 9 times out of 10, once you get to a place where you're not doing what you're supposed to do, or what she thought you were supposed to be doing based off of the conversations that you guys have had, or whatever it may have been. So an example, a man and a woman is having this conversation, and they're like, oh, yeah, we're gonna be together, and in so many years we can get married, or this is what I want. And this man is giving this woman all his dreams, his hopes. She inputs herself into those visions that he has for herself, and then she's like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Like, oh, I like you. You have a lot of what is the word I'm looking for? Mhm. Potential. She's like, you have a lot of potential, like, let's go for it. And that's what you hear a lot of men think about it. You hear a lot of men say, oh yeah, she wasn't falling in love with me. She was falling in love with a version of me she thought I was going to be, or she's falling in love with my potential, or, X, Y, and Z. And I was like, I was just sitting here thinking about all these different things. I was like, okay. And even when you think about, I hear a lot of conversation about divorce rates and who initiates divorce, and, all these things. And 9 times out of 10, the woman is the one who's initiating divorce. Like, okay, well, I'm done with this. I'm not da. And some of the men who are really in love with their wives are like, well, she used to do this. Now she don't do this no more. Now she want to divorce me. Nah, da. Because this woman has progressed, and she has changed and adjusted as who she is. And now she's finding herself in a place where she's like, okay, this is no longer beneficial to me or to my family as a whole. So now I must move forward. And yes, I care about you. I love you, all these things. However, this no longer services me, so let me go. And so as I was reading through some of these scriptures, like I say, it was Ephesians and Titus chapter 2, Ephesians chapter 5, Titus chapter 2. One of the things in Titus, when I was reading it, it was like, teach the younger women. It was like, Let me look for it first, because I think it's verse 3. Verse 3. Um, no, verse 4. So Titus 2, verse 4, it says, it was talking about the older women and what they need to do, like don't be slandering, don't be drinking too much, whatever else. Just teach what is good. So it's telling the woman, teach what is good, right? And then it says, then they can urge the older women, then they can urge the younger women to love their husband and children. And when I looked up urge, I looked up the definition, and then I looked up the etymology. And the word urge means uh, to press hard, right? So they can press hard to love their husband and children. They can push forward, they can force them, compel them, stimulate them. And it says to tie or to bind, to slave, all these other words, right? Um, and so I was like, so why would it say, or why would there need to be for a urge to teach younger women to love their husband and children? And I thought about it even earlier today. I was thinking about it. I was like, what if a younger woman from the time she was born till, let's say the 20s, because that's usually, you go from birth to 18, where you're in school, you're learning and all that stuff. If a woman was actually taught from birth, not just your vagina is important, right? And to save it for marriage, but the value of her as a whole is valuable, right? And she should be reverenced, and she should um define her own definition of purity, right? And what if she was not pressed to be given baby dolls, or given, the kitchen to cook and the baby dolls to pretend to be the mother? Like, what if there was none of that manipulation, and she was just taught to care for herself, provide for herself, and create, right? Um, I don't know. It was just a lot of different things. And mind y'all, all of this on top of me I've been watching Under the Queen's Umbrella, which is like an Asian movie. I highly recommend. The other movie I was watching not too long ago was um dang. It's another Asian movie series that I was watching on Netflix. Um Oh, The Alchemy of Souls. And then most recently, I started watching this other movie, The King's Adornment or something, The King's something. Um, but as I've been watching these things, especially Under the Queen's Umbrella, so let's go there. What I realized, one, is that let me back up before I go into it. I've been talking about chess for a while. I was like, I really want to get back in chess. When I was younger, I was in middle school. I learned how to play chess, and I used to love it. I haven't played in a long time. I think me and my friend went to Jamaica in May, the beginning of May, and it was this large, like, full size chessboard where you had to, the pieces was this big, like, and move it. And I realized that I was not strategizing when I was playing chess. Like, I was just playing just to kind of rekindle some of the moves. But I've always, like I said, go back. I've always loved the game of chess. And for me, yes, the king is important on the board, but the queen is the one who has more range than any other piece on the board. And in my own research over time in life, I realized that queens are most valuable, right? Than any other player. Queens move, they can move like no other. And that's in chess and in the game of life, right? Like life in general, not the actual game of life, but in life in general, right? They can move strategically the way that no one else can. Like, you watch a lot of these other movies, the queen usually was a princess somewhere else in a faraway land, and they had uh she had a brother who became the king or whatever else have you, and they married her European. They married her off to, this other location so that they can make this allyship, right? But she could move somewhat freely within her own forces. But then even when she went abroad to back home, where she's still recognized as the princess, or the queen of this other place, she can move freely, right? So it's about knowing that she has more range and power, but it's been this sort of manipulation because you have this king that can only do one step. Even though he can move in all the same directions, he can only take one step, versus her being able to floor it to the other side of the board and floor it back over to her own palace. So I always value that idea. And like I said, I started watching Under the Queen's Umbrella. And as I was watching this movie, I was looking at it almost as a game of chess, and how this queen, how she was thinking, and she was, a couple steps behind and then a couple steps ahead, and then analyzing and strategizing how other people may move and what they were doing, and how they were trying to take over, and how she not only was protecting herself, her sons, her princes, and still protecting her husband at the end of the day, for him to be who he needs to be. But even he did not know how much she was moving, right? And so I take this back to this because, there's some value within women, within, period. Let's just leave it there. There's some value that's within women that for some reason society is trying to reduce it. And sometimes it's not easily seen, because and of course I still think too, I respect men. I think men need to be respected. I think certain things in society doesn't make sense. We cannot demonize and reduce uh the male's play in any of this. However, we must we must understand how valuable the woman is. And I think also, and I hate talking about politics and all this other stuff, but it just popped in my head, and I'm one of the people, if it popped in my head, it means I'm supposed to be saying something on it a little bit, not always. But maybe that's also why we have these people who are attacking womanhood, right? You have these men who have minimized women to nothing, who always wanted women to be in their place and to reduce a woman in her position. And it's not all men, because I love men, and there's plenty of them, plenty, who respect a woman and who loves a woman with all of their being. And it's so beautiful. I'm not gonna go there because I might get a little emotional, because I know that it's there. But there are some men who who really dislike women. And it's like, let us not only be in control of these women, now let us become women, and let us then demonize women and tell women how to be women and how to show up as women, and what it is that they can do and can't do. And let's control all situations. And I think there's something extra special and crazy about that too. It's just wild to me. But there are, and again, because I know somebody gonna come out and they're gonna be like, oh, you coming for, um the LGBTQ and whatever else alphabet, because after it got the Q, I don't know anything after that. So sorry, y'all. I just don't. But I'm not coming for that community. I think that it's very, very valuable. These individuals are very important. I think that they need to have their own lane. Um, I hear people always talking about, and I'm gonna get back to women and men in a moment, but I hear people talk about, transgenders and these transgender men going into women's sports and whatever else. And it's just like, I think that is very unfair to those women. I think that transgender should have their own lane. I think that it's so interesting that people want to demonize and remove and undervalue people in the lane that they're in, instead of just making, which is what they used to do in the 90s and early 2000s, instead of just making your own lane. Why, if you don't believe that you're just a man and a woman, that there is non-binary or transgender or queer or whatever else you want to make it a bigger lane highway. Don't just go with the 2 to the 4 lanes, then go make it a 6-lane highway and create your own lane and create your own recreational sports. Like, I'm not understanding why that can't happen. Well, trans women are real women. No, you're not. You just decided that you wanted your own. You wanted your own lane as being a trans woman. So then do that. And me, myself, I'll support you. But do not, and I think this is what happens a lot, do not do unto the women that what people have been doing to you. You as a trans person now trying to oppress women because you were oppressed. You're oppressing the wrong people. You should be oppressing yourself and the men who wouldn't allow you to just be what it is that you want. I think that there's so many things that's going on, because I think sex and sexuality and gender are all 3 different things. And I used to do that as a study as well, on my own time when I was in school, because I was always so intrigued with those ideas, right? And how those roles play out in society and in religion and all those things. And side note, so I don't know if I told y'all on this podcast or recording or not, but my bachelor's is in English and in religion. And then I got a master's in psychology because, part of me always was just so intrigued on the studying of the mind and in sociology. Well, I don't have a degree in sociology, but I was intrigued with the study of the mind and the people and all these different interactions. So, you'll see me quote, when the brain is on those things, quote different different people, different individuals. You'll hear me quote Confucius, William Shakespeare, then turn around and quote I was about to throw in some randoms. Look, Bobby Hemmett, look, you need to go check him out too. Brother Panic, and then you'll turn around and hear me quoting something off of wherever the information comes from. What's my boy that I love all the time? I can't even think. Well, Nelly Nelly. I don't know. Anyway, Goodert, or you'll hear me quote, what's the one who did the book, Power versus Force? That ain't who I'm thinking about, because that's another one. That's not this is the book, but just the book, because it's the one I have in my room. Hawkins David. That's not who I was thinking about though. I was thinking about I can see his face and can't think his name. What was the book? Becoming Superhuman, Becoming Supernatural. Oh, Joe Dispenza. Thanks. I was like, I can see his face. But you'll hear me quoting, you might hear me recommending some of their books and things like that. But I digress at the end of the day. My biggest thing is that people have to come to a place where they love and appreciate themselves so that they can understand how to love and appreciate others. Again, I don't have anything against any of them, but what I've been noticing so often is that there's so many people who are consistently undermining, whether they're trying to on purpose or not, undermining the very basics um of certain things. Like, you know, I'm watching all the pronoun stuff and whatever else, and people are requesting for respect without providing respect to others, right? Oh, I don't want to be called a he, call me a she or a them or a they. Them or a they, I may mess that up every single time. I'm not even gonna lie to you. The only time I use them or they, and I remember getting a whooping, was when I referred to God. I would call it, I would call God a it or a them or a they when I was younger. And I remember I got a whooping. This is how come I can remember it, trauma. And I'm gonna talk about that too on another one. But um, yeah, I remember getting a whooping, got my behind toe up. God is a he. And I was like, what? And this was when my sister wasn't born, so I was under 8. I was under 8. And I remember getting whooped for calling God a them in a day, in a it. And it's like, God is not a it, it's a him. And I'm like, where did you get that from? You know, but that was my natural, you know, experience. And I don't know, the creator and the creation. I digress, y'all. So just talking about men and talking about women and talking about love and all these things, I think that women, just like when I was going through all this stuff, I think that women have been taught this idea of what love is and how love should be shown and seen and all these other things. And I think as much as people try to make it seem like love is something that comes or should come natural to women, I can't necessarily agree. Not to say that they can't love, right? But this is why you have a lot of women who, even after they have kids and they go through postpartum and they like, I don't love my child. Like, I'm not feeling it. And people think that that's weird and that's crazy, but it's a taught thing. And it's not weird, it's not crazy. And this issue, this thing of people making these women feel as so or less than or whatever have you, that's really the true problem. Because I guess if you're taking the Bible for what it is, you know, some of these scriptures for what they are and what they say, it's taught. That's even like with men, you know, they're like a lot of women. Can he provide? Can he take care of me? Can he take care of our kids? Da 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 da. And then I can fall in love with him. And some of the women who fall in love with men who aren't able to do all these things, why they find themselves in a detrimental state, is because that's not what you're supposed to do. Yeah, as I'm talking, I'm like, really, it's just, I'm really, it's a download, baby, because I ain't even really realized how deep it was. But yeah, look, yeah. I find it interesting. I think this is interesting. Okay. I'm done. So I will be seeing y'all later. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, like, share this out, and I'll be back with y'all with some more foolishness and education and whatever else. Y'all let me know what y'all want to talk about. I know a lot of stuff. Sometimes I be thinking about a lot of stuff. Typically, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Excuse me. The best stuff comes to me while I'm naked. And I can't be live on here recording and being naked. And usually it's like, you know, not only that, like when you look, when sis is taking a shower, getting out the shower, getting prepared to leave out the door. And I guess I need to just record audio and post stuff up. But yeah, I'll be doing this a little more often as I sit up here and take a break from all the other foolishness that I'm doing, or just work and talk to y'all at the same time. But yeah, like I said, I'm out, y'all. I love y'all. I love y'all. But like, share, subscribe, and we'll talk about something else next time. All right, y'all. Be easy. Bye.